They bring my baby car up. They bring my baby car up. They treated her like she was a dog. I don't like that. Said she had seen my baby in 24 hours. She should have called me and let me know that she had seen my baby in 24 hours. She should have let me know. We both would have went to try to find my baby. They hurt my baby so bad. My baby didn't deserve this. My baby was a good baby.
She had 150,000 people watching her every move. But no one saw this coming. August 22, 2023, Austell, Georgia. Police find the body of a 22-year-old woman. She has been stabbed 81 times. Her name is Beauty Couch. And the man police are looking for. He is already gone. Let us go back to the beginning, before the fire, before the woods, before all of it, because to truly feel the weight of what happened that Tuesday in August, you first need to know the kind of person Beauty Couch was. Before we continue, please share, like, and subscribe to my channel if you find value to this video. Now let's begin. Beauty grew up near Atlanta, Georgia. She was the kind of person who lit up a room without even trying. When she walked through the door, heads turned. Not because she was loud, not because she demanded anything, simply because there was something warm about her, something that pulled people toward her like sunlight pulls plants toward a window. From a very young age, she found her happy place at the skating rink. You know that feeling when you do something so well that it stops feeling like effort. That was Beauty on wheels. She did not just skate. She floated. She twisted and turned and danced on those wheels like she had been born with them attached to her feet. People would stop their own skating just to stand along the wall and watch her move. Her mother, Kimberly, raised her with love and strength. Her sister, Layla, grew up beside her. Her aunt, Christy, always said the same thing: she brings so much joy. There really is no other way to say it. Then one day, Beauty picked up a phone camera. She started recording herself at the rink. Short clips, simple ones. Just her, the wheels, the music, and that natural ability of hers on full display. People clicked, people shared, people came back for more. Within a short period, over 150,000 people were following her online under the name Beauty Katera. That is not a small number. That is a stadium full of people, all tuning in regularly just to watch one young woman do what she loved. She was not trying to be famous. She was just being herself. And that was more than enough. Around this period, a man entered her world. His name was Eugene Louis-Jacques. He had not always lived in Georgia. He moved there specifically to be near Beauty. At first glance, that might seem sweet, romantic even. A man so drawn to a woman that he packs his things and travels to a whole new state just to be close to her. But Kimberly noticed something. Mothers have a special kind of radar. It cannot be explained easily. It does not come from a book. It comes from years of watching people closely and knowing deep in the chest when something feels wrong. Kimberly felt that radar go off every single time Eugene was around. He was quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that does not feel peaceful, it feels guarded. Like someone keeping a lid tightly shut on something hiding underneath. Layla felt it too. She later told reporters the relationship was still very new, that the family had not had enough time to truly know.
That was buying her flowers and taking her out and, making her smile at one point. How did it get here?
This man, and that his silence struck her as strange, not shy strange, something else entirely. Beauty, though, continued on Tuesday, August 22, 2023. An ordinary morning became an ordinary afternoon. Warm Georgia air, slow hours. Nobody in that household had any reason to think this particular day would end differently from any other. But by the time darkness settled over that neighborhood, Kimberly was picking up her phone, calling her daughter, getting no answer, calling again. Still nothing. And across town, a vehicle belonging to their family was already beginning to burn. The phone kept ringing. No answer. Kimberly Couch stood in her home that Tuesday evening with a feeling she could not shake. Her daughter had not picked up once throughout the entire day. That was not normal. Beauty was the kind of person who stayed connected, who checked in, who responded, who let people know she was okay. The silence was loud. She tried Eugene next. His phone rang out too. Nobody on the other end. Just that hollow sound of a call going nowhere. Hours passed. Then came the knock at the door. Officers stood on the porch with news that no parent should ever receive standing up. The family vehicle, a Dodge Dart, had been found on Joe Jerkins Boulevard near Landers Street. It was on fire, completely ablaze, the kind of fire that does not start by accident. Kimberly's chest must have dropped to the floor in that moment. Investigators rushed back to the scene. When they arrived and learned that a young woman connected to that vehicle was unaccounted for, they did not leave. They spread out. They combed the surrounding area, the road, the grass, the dark edges where the streetlights stopped reaching. Less than 200 feet from the burning car, hidden just inside the tree line, they found her. Beauty Couch. Face down, motionless, gone. The medical examiner would later confirm what no one wanted to put into words. She had been stabbed, not once, not a handful of times in a struggle, 81 times, each wound a separate decision, each one deliberate. Whoever did this did not act out of panic. This was carried out with intention. The car had burned so completely that forensic teams could collect almost nothing from it. No usable fingerprints, no clothing fibers, no traces of blood that survived the heat. The fire had consumed everything it was supposed to consume. Almost everything. Because there, amid the destruction, something small remained. A single piece of paper. A traffic citation with a name printed on it. That name was Eugene Louis-Jacques, found right beside where Beauty's body lay, in the middle of a scene that had otherwise been wiped clean. Investigators looked at that paper and understood immediately that whoever left it behind either made a catastrophic mistake or someone wanted them to find it there. That question would follow this case all the way into a courtroom. By this point, detectives had a clear focus for their investigation, but Eugene Louis-Jacques was no longer in Georgia. He had vanished. Left the state entirely. At the exact window of time when his girlfriend had gone missing and her family's car had been set alight, he was gone. A search began. Days passed. Tips came in. Law enforcement tracked the trail across state lines until sheriff's deputies in Louisiana received information that brought them to a specific man in their area. They approached him. He gave them a name. It was not his name. When the deputies pressed him, when they asked him directly why he had introduced himself as someone he was not, he looked at them and answered without much hesitation. I was trying to avoid getting caught. Those 7 words, captured on body camera footage, would later be played inside a courtroom for a jury to hear with their own ears, not the words of an innocent man who panicked, not the words of someone who simply feared being blamed. 7 words that told the entire story before the trial even started. Eugene Louis-Jacques was placed in handcuffs, transported back to Georgia, and charged with murder. But here is where things took a turn that nobody expected. Because when his legal team began preparing his defense, when they sat down and examined every piece of evidence prosecutors intended to use against their client, they found something that stopped them cold. Or rather, they found almost nothing. No DNA belonging to Louis-Jacques anywhere on Beauty's body. No trace of her blood on his clothing. None in his vehicle. A fire thorough enough to erase an entire crime scene, yet the only surviving item just happened to carry his name on it. His attorney looked at that and called it exactly what it appeared to be, bizarre. And he intended to say so directly to the jury. The courtroom filled slowly. Journalists, supporters, members of Beauty's family who had spent months preparing themselves for this moment, rehearsing how to sit still while strangers debated the worth of someone they had held and fed and celebrated and grieved. Kimberly took her seat. Layla sat beside her. And at the front of the room, Eugene Louis-Jacques settled into the defendant's chair, composed, measured, giving away nothing. The trial had begun. Prosecutor after prosecutor stood before the jury and built their case brick by careful brick. They started with the timeline. August 22nd. The unanswered calls, the burning vehicle, the body discovered in the darkness less than 200 feet away. They walked jurors through each detail with the patience of people who understood that 12 strangers needed to feel the sequence in their bones, not just hear it with their ears. Then came the evidence. The traffic citation bearing Louis-Jacques' name, recovered from a scene where everything else had turned to ash. His departure from Georgia at the exact moment the investigation opened. The false identity offered to Louisiana deputies, and those 7 words played directly from body camera footage so every person in that room could hear his own voice delivering them. I was trying to avoid getting caught. Recording filled the courtroom. Nobody spoke after it finished playing. The defense rose next. Attorney Brian Lumpkin approached the jury with a straightforward proposition. His client, he argued, was not guilty, and the evidence, or the staggering lack of it, supported that position entirely. Consider what the prosecution did not have, Lumpkin told them. No DNA from Eugene Louis-Jacques recovered anywhere on Beauty's body. Not a single strand. Not a trace. Nothing under her fingernails. Nothing on her clothing. For a crime described as this ferocious, 81 wounds delivered at close range, the complete absence of biological transfer was not a minor gap. It was a canyon. No blood discovered on any garment belonging to the defendant. None retrieved from his personal vehicle either. A killing carried out with that level of sustained physical contact would have left something behind. It always does, and yet nothing. Then Lumpkin turned to the citation. That surviving sheet of paper. Found lying near the victim in a location where virtually every other piece of material had been reduced to nothing by an extraordinarily thorough fire. It is so bizarre, he told the jury, so unreal. Of everything that could have endured those temperatures, of every surface, every object, every scrap of material inside that automobile, what remains is a single readable document carrying my client's name, right next to her. He let that thought sit in the air. Someone left it there, he said quietly, because someone needed you to find it. The jury listened to both sides across several days. They examined the photographs, reviewed the laboratory submissions, watched the body camera footage more than once, listened to witness testimony from people who knew Beauty, people who knew Eugene, and forensic specialists who had processed the scene. They asked questions. They requested certain exhibits be shown again. And then they withdrew to deliberate. What happened in that private room? What conversations took place? What moments of doubt arose? What arguments were made between 12 ordinary people tasked with an extraordinary decision? None of that is part of the public record. What is recorded is how long it took them. Not long. When they returned and the foreperson rose to deliver the verdict, the courtroom held its breath collectively. Kimberly gripped whatever was closest to her hand. Layla did not blink. Guilty, 1 count confirmed. Then another after that. All 6 charges read aloud in sequence: malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, arson, concealing a death, tampering with evidence, and beside each one the same single word returned: guilty, 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 6 times over. Room exhaled. Some wept. Some closed their eyes. Some simply stared forward at the man who had just been confirmed as the person responsible for ending Beauty Couch's time on this earth. He showed no visible reaction. At sentencing, Prosecutor Jared Horowitz addressed Judge Kimberly Childs directly. This defendant showed absolutely no mercy toward Ms. Couch, he said, and this court ought not extend any toward him. Judge Childs considered everything before her. Then she handed down her ruling. Life imprisonment, without any possibility of release, plus an additional 20 years stacked on top. Eugene Louis-Jacques, 24 years old, would spend every remaining day of his existence behind a locked door. No parole hearing, no second opportunity, no eventual freedom waiting at the far end of a sentence, just walls. For the rest of his life. Before proceedings closed, Beauty's Aunt Christy Thurman stood up to speak. She did not direct her words at the convicted man. She did not address the attorneys or the judge or the cameras positioned around the room. She spoke about her niece, about the particular quality of her laughter, about the atmosphere that shifted whenever she entered a space, about the specific, irreplaceable texture of knowing someone like that, someone whose presence made ordinary moments feel worth remembering. Beauty was a gift, Christie said softly, an absolute gift to every single one of us. That is the truth this entire case leaves behind. Not a courtroom, not a sentence, not a convicted man sitting in a cell somewhere in Georgia tonight. A 22-year-old woman with wheels on her feet and 150,000 people watching her twirl, simply because watching her made the world feel lighter for a few minutes. She deserved decades more of that. She deserved everything. Rest, beauty, Katera couch. The world knows your name. And we are not letting it go. If this story moved something inside you, if you believe beauty deserves to be remembered rather than forgot, please take 5 seconds right now. Hit the like button. Share this with somebody. Let her story reach further than the courtroom ever could. Subscribe if you are new here. Every week brings another real story, another real person, another truth worth knowing. Thank you for watching. She mattered. She still does.